Hello and good day, big art muscle friends. This is the final project in my line lesson series. And in this video, we're going to be drawing a double shape zentangle with a watercolor splash. Materials are linked in the description below, so grab what you need and let's get started. A few notes before we begin. Because this is the final lesson in this series, you might find it somewhat challenging. However, if you've completed all the lessons before it, it might be a breeze. In the previous lessons, we built our line and design skills on top of a watercolor background or a pre-made template. What makes this lesson challenging is that you have to draw your own double shape template from scratch. But what's awesome about that is that you get to be in charge of designing the entire composition from the very beginning. And don't worry, I made shape templates that you can use to print, cut, and use to design your own double or triple shape template. You can also go a step further than a shape. Consider using the outline of an animal or a profile portrait as your starting point. There's lots of possibilities. For now, go get your shape ready and let's build some art muscles. You're going to start this project by taking the shape you cut out before, laying it on your page, and tracing it. Arrange the shapes on your paper however you want. I'm going for a side-by-side formation, so as you see, I use my 2 fingers to measure approximately how far I want it from that edge. I can measure it to make sure it's relatively even, but I'm not that concerned about it. When you have your shape in the position you want, what you're going to do is use your pencil to mark the corners. Then you can just use your ruler to connect the dots. Another option would be to simply trace this shape. I'm not a fan of tracing paper because it's so thin, it's somewhat flimsy. However, if you have a stencil or a cardboard shape, tracing is far more easy. As you can see, I'm working with a paper shape, so I'm going to stick to my connect the dots with a ruler method. I like meticulous detail, so I'm taking the time here to measure with a ruler how far away from the edge this side is. I want it to be even with its neighbor. However, let's say you do this and it's not quite even and you're disappointed that it's not centered. Don't worry, because you can always trim it afterwards. There's always room for problem solving in art. Now that I'm finished laying down my shapes, I'm going to go ahead and trace. Pro tip for a ruler, hold it in 2 places. If you hold it in one spot, oftentimes one of the edges is going to move. You want to create even pressure, so open your hand and hold your ruler in 2 spots. Just make sure your fingers don't overlap the ruler because you don't want to bump into them as you're tracing. Once you're finished tracing your shapes with pencil, go ahead and trace them with Sharpie. You will want to use your ruler again for this, unless you have a round shape or something that's far more organic. Then of course, do what's best for you. But if you have a very geometric setup like this, make sure you use your ruler again. We didn't go through all that work of measuring the outlines just to freehand the Sharpie part. When you're done with the outline, consider what you're going to do with the top and bottom edge if your shape lends itself to this. I like adding a thick line to the border just to make it pop out. Line variety using thick and thin is going to be a big feature of this lesson. When you're done with the outline, it's time to separate the inside into smaller sections. Notice the first thing I do is turn my paper. I like drawing from top to bottom. You do what feels most comfortable for you. Just know that it is an option. Your paper should not be glued to your surface. Continue dividing the inside of your shapes into more sections. We're still using variety here, but instead of different kinds of lines right now, we're thinking of space, smaller spaces, bigger spaces, just not all the same. The more and more thought you put into the layout, the composition of your artwork, the more you get to communicate with the viewer, whoever's looking at your artwork. You get to guide them without being there. Where do you want them to look? How do you want them to feel? Should they get totally sucked in by your artwork? Should they be hypnotized? Or do you want their eyes to travel around your designs? How you lay it out will totally influence how they see it. I'm going to speed up and then fast forward to when I'm finished with these sections. Notice how I do use line variety again, that thick and thin. When your sections are done, it's time to add patterns. I have pattern idea sheets and practice templates for you, so don't forget to print those out and plan your designs before you get started. In this series of line lessons, I've talked a lot about starting simple and building slow. So I'm going to let you watch the slow build of my patterns sped up here over the next 2 minutes. As I finish my patterns here, I wanted to let you know that in real time, this entire process took less than 30 minutes. I find that the further along I get in these types of projects, the more rhythm I build. Finding yourself in a really productive workflow can be very satisfying. And speaking of satisfying, it's time to add some color to these designs. There's lots of different ways you can approach this. Here, I'm just going to add what I call a rainbow cloud, but I wanted to share a few other options with you. Option 1 is to go totally abstract. Dip your paintbrush in any color and literally flick and spatter it all around the page. You could do this with 1, 2, all the colors, totally up to you. You won't be able to plan where those spatters go, but I guarantee the results will be so cool. Option 2. Draw another one of your shapes right in the center, overlapping both of the ones you have now. Then paint only inside that shape. That will leave the original 2 line designs you did half in color, half not. The contrast of the color and the lines together will be so awesome. Option 3, paint one of your shapes. And by that I mean paint inside one of your shapes. Leave one black and white and paint the other. The contrast between black and white and all color will be really visually pleasing. There's lots of different ways to paint and add color to this piece. It's completely up to you how you add your color, and this is what's going to really make your piece stand out and allow you to show your personality through your artwork. Thank you so much for making this double-shaped zentangle with me. I hope you were able to complete and enjoy all of these line lessons, but mostly, I hope these lessons helped you build strength and confidence in your line and design skills. These projects were a glimpse into what I might teach if my school went all the way up to 8th grade. I only teach kindergarten through 4th grade in person, and we still start every year with line because it's one of the most basic and useful elements of art. Our art muscle building journey will continue, maybe with shape, color, texture. You'll have to stay tuned to see what comes next. Until then, happy creating.